So number 7 is a little bit tricky. The hardest part usually for these is drawing the picture, but this problem also in particular is a little harder because there's substitution involved. So they say the eye of a person, so the person's 6 feet off the ground, so the eye is up here. Remember, you're always looking straight before you look for elevation or depression. So this height of the person, or where their eye is 6 feet off the ground. It then says that when they look down to the base of a mural, so if this is a tall picture, so let's say it's a picture of a sun, right? This picture in the museum is from the floor and it goes all the way up. The angle of depression, so you always start from their straight horizontal line and then you go down to the base is 13 degrees. And then it says their eye of sight going up to see the top of the picture, elevation is 17 degrees. So if you're starting here all the way up, that little piece is 17 degrees. So we know this bottom amount is still 6, because if over here it's 6, then over here it's 6. So we can just call this little top piece that we're missing from above 6 feet to the very top of the mural, we can call that Y. For a lot of these problems, you can create 2 triangles. So we see here's a triangle, and then we see that we've got another triangle up on top. So we first start with the red triangle, the bottom one, because it has the most information so that we can find this x value to do the blue triangle. So we know that we have to use tan because the angle we're referring to is this 13-degree angle. So opposite of it is 6, and then the adjacent we'd say is x. You need to have 2 knowns to solve for the third unknown. So we'd say tan of 13 degrees is its opposite 6 over its adjacent x. So in order to isolate x, we multiply by x, the value in the denominator. So it crosses off on the right. And then we have to divide by tan of 13 on both sides. So on the left it cancels, so we're left with x equals 6 divided by tan 13 gets us 25.99 feet. So now using this information, we can plug that in to the x part of our top triangle. We have 25.99 here. And if we're referring to angle 17, we have 2 known facts to solve for the unknown, solve for y. So opposite of 17 degrees is the y. Its adjacent is 25.99. So TOA, tan of 17 is its opposite over adjacent. And same concept, multiply by 25.99, crosses off on the right. Then 25.99 times tan of 17 is 7.95 feet. So now if we know that this y value up here, this little chunk, is 7.95 feet, to find the height of the whole mural, we have to do y plus the original 6. So 6 plus the 7.95 gets us a total of 13.95 feet for the entire height of the mural. That's our answer. So for the next one, it says that they give us the height of a lighthouse is 55.5 feet. They tell us that from the top of the lighthouse, so we always draw a straight horizontal line, looking down, so if your eye is able to look down and you're in the lighthouse, to the base of this boat is 11.3 degrees. Then we first do what we can. If we know that this up here is a right angle from a tall straight lighthouse to that horizontal line, and we already know that this depression is 11.3%, or not percent, sorry, degrees, then we can find this inside value of our triangle because we have 90 minus 11.3 gets us 78.79. We then can find this last angle because sum of the triangle's angles is 180, and if we subtract the other two, the right angle, negative 90, and 78.7, we're left with 11.3. For this problem, we can use law of sines, so you can pick any two A's or B's that you want to work with. So little a over sine A equals little b over sine B. And I chose to work with these two because you need to have 3 of the knowns to solve for the unknown. So if we're trying to solve for A, which on my picture I labeled as X, the unknown side, the distance from the base of the lighthouse to the boat, so that's X, or we could call it A. I know sine of A, I know angle A, I know angle B, and I know side B. So then we just plug in, we cross multiply, right? A times sine of 11.3 degrees is equal to sine of 78.7 times 55. And we're solving for side A, so we divide by sine 11.3 degrees on both sides. So A is 55 times sine of 78.7 degrees divided by sine of 11.3 degrees. Just make sure that your mode is in degrees. So when you see an equation, you know that you are going to see different parts that will tell us about transformations. So this value in red, the first thing we see tells us 2 things. If we see a negative, that's always a reflection over the x-axis. And then it also tells us about the amplitude. So you take the absolute value, the amplitude is 3, and it's bigger than 1, so it's a vertical stretch. In blue, we see a 4, and that tells us about 2 things. Thing number 1, period. The formula is absolute value of 2 pi over b, so we plugged in 4 in the denominator, and we simplified, and we got the period is pi over 2. And then it also tells us about our horizontal stretch or shrink. So, because the absolute value of 4 is less than 1, horizontal stretch and shrink is opposite of intuition, so smaller than 1 is actually a shrink. Then the C value over here tells us left-right movement, so it's opposite of positive, so we get to the left, negative 2 pi over 3. And off to the right in green, that's literal up and down, so since it's negative, it went down 4 units. So then I highlighted same colors. In red, first thing we see is vertical stretch and shrink and a horizontal reflection across the x-axis. So since it's a half, smaller than 1, vertical shrink. Then if we look in blue, tells us a lot. The negative we see means a reflection now across the y-axis. And then the third also tells us if it's a horizontal stretch or shrink. Absolute value is is less than 1, opposite of intuition, so it's actually a horizontal stretch. The negative third is our b. It also tells us about our period. The formula for period is absolute value of 2 pi over b, so we plug it in. And over here, I show you the math. 2 pi divided by negative third, change to multiplication, flip negative third, so we end up with 6 pi for the period. Opposite of C up here, opposite of negative 2 is positive 2, so it went to the right 2. And then in green is literal, it goes up 1.